Good evening. This is Donna Blomquist, librarian at LaSalle Public Library. Welcome to tonight's program, Holiday Traditions in the Kitchen. Before we begin, just a few reminders. This week on Thursday, December 14th at 6 p.m. Central Time, join us virtually when art historian Laura Mueller presents How Art Tells the Christmas Stories. We hope you will join us for this special seasonal program. And on Tuesday, January 9th, virtually at 6 p.m. Central Time, the library will be kicking off the new year with Jasmine Cho, founder of Yummyholic, an online bakery specializing in amazing treats, most notably portrait cookies that depict someone special in the customer's life. But even more, Cho creates portrait cookies to highlight the stories of marginalized figures in American history. And she writes the curriculum for schools that support that history. Her work has been exhibited at the Heinz History Center in tandem with the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery and featured internationally on NPR, CBS This Morning, and the Korea Daily. She is also a Food Network champion and a TEDx speaker. And on January 23rd, as a partner in the Illinois Humanities Big Read, a statewide multi-event humanities program, the library will host an in-person film viewing and follow-up discussion event at 6 p.m. in the library meeting room. A PBS frontline film, Poor Kids, explores how poverty affects children in America. The film will be followed by a discussion facilitated by humanities scholars and professionals who work with children. The program will also be live streamed on YouTube. This film program will support the book discussion groups held earlier in January at the Oglesby Public Library, a Big Read partner. Book to be discussed, Heartland by Sarah Smarsh, is a memoir, a New York Times bestseller that focuses on how economic class dictates everything from job safety and healthcare to housing and education, and takes a look at small town and rural settings and the availability of necessary resources. The author questions the ability of many to reach their idea of the American dream. If you would like to participate in the book discussions, please contact us at the LaSalle Public Library or contact Lynn Sheedy, director at the Oglesby Public Library. Copies of the book, Heartland, are available at both libraries and in the library system. As always, all library programming is free and open to the public. It is also shareable, so feel free to pass the information on to others. And now tonight, we welcome food enthusiast Natalie Martin as she demonstrates how to create 4 delicious holiday recipes just right for family and friends. Natalie, are you there?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Donna. I'm super excited to be here today. I love the holidays. I love cooking during the holidays. I love showing my love and care for people through food. And so this program kind of really fits with things that I really love. But I will say, as a person who is from, a very mixed cultural background, as far as lots of European, ancestry and those kinds of things, I don't have a lot of traditions that I had, growing up. Like, I don't have something that my family made every year, things like that. So, and we don't identify as one specific cultural heritage. Like I have, Polish step family, and I have, English ancestry and Norwegian ancestry, but that was never something that featured really heavily in my, growing up and in my history. So the recipes that we chose tonight, we chose from cultural histories of our area, as far as the makeup of our area. And we couldn't represent everybody because I'd be here cooking for you guys all night. So we chose a couple. The ones that we showed, that we put in the description of the event, we had thought represented Italian American history, Mexican American ancestry, Polish ancestry, and then just general English ancestry. So those were the original recipes that we put together, which would have been panforte, which is an Italian kind of fruit and nut cake. I'm not gonna, I can't even say it, makowiecz or something like that. Sorry, I'm not Polish enough. But it's a Polish fruit cake, which is more of like a quick bread with fruit and nuts in it. Eggnog, which we've all heard of, and then buñuelos. Well, we're only going to be making eggnog and buñuelos tonight, but we're also going to add in almond crescent cookies, and we'll go through that. And that was a time choice. We wanted to make the most of our time together, and also have an engaging program, because some of these recipes, like fruitcake, take a long time in the oven. And so it was something like, when I went to prepare for this program, I was like, oh no, that's going to be boring as heck. I am going to talk really briefly about fruitcake and kind of the importance of, why fruitcakes might have existed, might be very popular around the holidays. This Polish fruitcake contains a mixture of kind of whatever fruit and nuts you have in your house, which I just love the concept of that. And it's the idea of taking things, historically taking things that didn't go bad, that stayed good for a very long time, very shelf stable, and taking them and turning them into something special. And this fruitcake, which Donna and the library will be sharing the recipe for, so you can feel free to try it at home. It's not a complicated recipe, but it does, ask you to beat your egg whites separate from your other ingredients. And that was just going to take a lot of bowl washing live on air that we just didn't really want. But what I was going to add in, and look, I had it all prepped and ready for you guys. I have slivered almonds, I have apricots, I have raisins, and I have crushed walnuts in here. And these are all things that I just had. I used the leftovers. I had the leftover of a bag of slivered almonds. I had the leftover of a bag of crushed walnuts, leftover apricots, and leftover raisins. And I combined all of those, and they were going to go into this fruitcake. If I make it, I'll send a picture to Donna. Oh, I will make it because I already cut up all the stuff. But that's the kind of the joy of fruitcakes. Now, if you think about, the joke about fruitcakes, for at least what I heard growing up, was that they were dense and you could use them as a doorstop and stuff like that. And the fruitcakes that we're talking about in that case are usually a soaked fruitcake that can be preserved for a long time, very shelf stable forever. A lot of times it has a liquor or alcohol element to it, which allows it to stay good without going bad. And yeah, they can be done dense and moist and so full of fruit that they take a really long time to cook out. Those would be more maybe from like English or, that kind of United Kingdom realm. Whereas, but a lot of different, Panforte, which we were also talking about making tonight, is an Italian fruit cake, which was hazelnuts and dried fruit and very thin, but also mixed with chocolate. So a very different style. So regionally, there's a lot of different fruit cakes that go with the area. So the things I am going to make tonight, because I am going to make food for us tonight. I'm going to make us some nut crescents. I'm actually, the recipe is traditionally for almond crescents, but you can use whatever nuts you have on hand. I decided, because my family likes pecans, I had pecans in my freezer, so I'm actually going to make pecan crescents tonight. This recipe, you don't have to use a mixer if you don't want to, but it's very simple. It's 5 ingredients. Yeah, 5 ingredients. Flour, crushed nuts, sugar, butter, salt. That's it. It comes together very quickly. It's a shortbread base, but it's that traditional crescent shaped nut cookie, usually dusted in powdered sugar, that you see around the holidays. Historically, it comes from, European countries. There's some, Austria, like the Austrian area, mountainous regions, that kind of region over there. But there's a variety of different, kind of histories that go along with it. And a lot of different countries, will have their own version of it or their own specific nut that they would use regionally. Obviously, pecans are more of a North America thing. So that's kind of our own little spin here. But we're going to start and I'm going to change my camera angle for you and see if you can see this a little bit better. But maybe, let's see. No, that's not as fun, but that's okay. We'll look there and then we'll switch it up. So we're going to start by creaming some butter and sugar together. I am actually taking this recipe that I sent to Donna, and I am going to cut it down by 1/3. So I am going to do that simply because I didn't want to make a ton of cookies tonight. And this recipe was, because it doesn't have eggs, it's very easy to cut down. So when we're creaming butter and sugar, all we're doing is mixing the sugar so it starts to dissolve in the fat of the butter, okay? So you can see as I mix, it's getting smoother and smoother and fluffier, and that's exactly what we're looking for. All right, so as we cream it together, the butter is dissolving. That's going to stop our cookies from being grainy. And that is important because you want these to be almost like melt in your mouth texture. They're going to be a crumbly cookie when they actually get mixed. And you'll see as we make the butter fluffier, it gets lighter in color. And it actually starts to look like cream, which is going to be why, you know, we're called that. All right, so once we have our butter and sugar all mixed together, we're going to add a pinch of salt. I'm using salted butter just because, you know, I want, you know, like that buttery, sweet shortbread cookie kind of vibe. That's what we're going for with these, but we're going to add the beauty of the nuts. Now I am adding, so these again are pecans. You can kind of see they're not ground into pecan meal. It's got like some actual chunks to it. And that's what I want. I don't want it to be a fine powder. That's also going to help it hold its shape together. So make sure when you don't want to, if you're chopping them up, I did run them through a food processor. So you can do that, but don't let it go until it's ground, like to a fine pulp. And then this is this is just regular all-purpose flour. I'm adding the smallest, the recipe will call for a range of flour. Now, when you're doing a range of flour, you always want to start with the least amount of flour that it calls for, because you don't want to add too much all at once and have too much and have a dry cookie. Nobody wants a dry cookie. All right, I started to mix that together, and now I'm gonna try to get my butter and scrape it off. I'm gonna get it mostly mixed, and then I'm going to actually bring it all together with my fingers. And by that, I mean, I'm gonna combine it into like one mass. The nice thing about these is that they don't really, you don't have to use a mixer. It doesn't require fancy equipment. You can just do it with a wooden spoon, I personally think, which is the nice thing about it. I'm doing it for speed alone. As our dough starts to come together, you'll see less and less flour, and it will start to mix together with the butter, and it'll start to hold together into kind of big chunks. Just kind of like when you're making pie crust or another kind of pastry, we don't want to overwork this. That's going to make our cookies tough. So we just want to get it so that it looks mostly combined. And then we will finish off the job with our fingers. And that is so that our butter doesn't completely fuse with the flour and start to develop gluten. And when we develop gluten, that's when things go from a pastry or a crumbly texture to a bread texture. That gluten is what, you know, we identify with bread. So we're starting to get there. Coming together. I'm going to go for a little bit more, and then I'm going to combine it all together. All right. When I start to combine it, you can see if I crunch it together, it's holding together. That's exactly what we want. I'm going to get rid of my blade here, get this stuff out of the way, and I'm going to combine the rest with my hands. So we want to start grabbing it together, making it into one big chunk. And when we do this, you can see it's starting to hold together. You can still see the pieces of nuts that are in there, which we want. We want that texture from the nuts so that we can actually taste the nuts. If you wanted to toast these, switch my camera view here. If you wanted to toast these so that they, have a really nice nutty flavor, you can. I didn't, and it's simply because I forgot. So that's why I didn't. And then we're going to pull off little pieces and make them into a crescent moon shape. I read some articles about why these might be called, or why they might be shaped as crescents. I've heard everything from, traditional, like, religious reasons, like representing the moon when Jesus was born. I've heard things represented from Turkey, that it's a symbol of the Turkish crescent moon, all sorts of different things. So we're going to shape these into our crescent moon shapes. They might be hard to hold together, and that's okay. As we get them into the oven and bake them, the butter will start to bind with the other ingredients and it will hold it together. But we don't want to continue to work it and work it and work it, because again, the more we work with this, the more gluten that's going to develop, and then it's going to become tough. And we just don't want that. We want a crumbly, beautiful, buttery cookie, and the heat from our hands will start to melt the butter, and it'll start to kind of, we don't want the butter to melt except for when it's in the oven. So I'm only going to put together a couple of these, and I'm going to pop them in the oven, and I'll save the rest of the dough in the fridge for another time. So we are baking these in a 350-degree oven. I have it preheated behind us over here. And we will pop those in, and then hopefully they'll be done and beautiful by the time we're moved on to other things. So those are going in the oven. We're going to keep them in there for about, I don't know, 15 minutes. Let's set a timer. That way I can't get busy and forget. All right, so that's our almond crescents. We are, again, those are from a variety of different, heritages. Really, everyone's got their own kind of spin on it, but you might even see those on an Italian cookie platter, because as people have had cookies brought to them, especially here in America, right? As people have brought things over to other people's houses, people try recipes, and then that recipe becomes part of their actual family heritage. But the next recipe is easy, well, not easy to track the heritage, but a lot more documentation on the heritage of this next recipe is available, and that is buñuelos. And buñuelos are a Mexican fritter. Their heritage is actually in Spain, and so through colonization has become a part of Mexican traditions. And there's a couple of different kinds of, the word buñuelo actually translates to fritter. And I am a white lady who is talking about all of this. I'm not Mexican. So all of my information has come from the internet. So I'm doing my best, but I'm never going to pretend like I am a native Spanish speaker or that I have of Mexican heritage. But I love a fritter, and Mexican Americans are a very big part of our local culture, and I wanted them to be represented on this program. So that's kind of where we went with steak. Now there's a couple of different kinds of Mexican buñuelos that you will see. You will see like flattened out, almost tortilla looking fried pieces of dough. And again, a fritter is always going to be a fried dough. Fritters exist in a variety of cultures. There's a variety of historical references for why people have fritters, both from oven oil being so expensive, so then they had to use fryer oil to bake their breads. Various different heritages exist on fritters. We are not making the rolled out dough tonight, and simply that's a time constraint. With that kind of dough, you make it, you let it rise and sit and develop gluten, and then you tear off a piece, roll it out flat, and then fry it in oil. We are making what's called buñuelos de viento, which are going to be, like, the translation would be a wind fritter. And there's a couple of different things that I had read about why it's called a wind fritter, both because it looks like a window, you use this mold, but also because the dough is a lot more fragile. It's like more airy and that kind of thing. So this is, instead of being a yeasted dough, is going to be like a fried batter almost. So we're going to dip our mold into batter, and then we're going to fry it in oil. So this mold is a mold you can get on, Amazon or wherever. It is metal. And so you're going to, right now I'm heating it up in oil so that it gets nice and hot. I want that oil to coat the whole thing so that the batter doesn't stick to it. And the goal of what's going to happen is I'm going to dip this mold into batter and dip the batter back into the oil. And then the fritter will hopefully come right off. So we'll see how it goes. I did practice this. So we'll see how it works, but I'm dipping this mold in oil. I'm dabbing it off on paper towel. And then I've got our batter all made up. And this batter is made of flour, eggs, sugar, and then I have orange zest in here. There's a lot of different traditional toppings that you can put on the different flavorings that you can put on it. Everything from anise to orange to vanilla. So really it's up to your flavor preference. This did supposedly, I'm not skilled enough, but you can, this will just fall right off of your mold, but that hasn't been my experience. I have to kind of give it a little encouragement with a knife or a toothpick or something like that. But so I'm dipping this batter into hot oil. My oil is about 365 degrees. And then it is frying it, and then it should come off in theory. Now, obviously, theories are all good and everything until it doesn't work, especially even when you practice it. But so we're going to fry this in oil, and then we're going to dip it in coat it in either powdered sugar or in cinnamon sugar. Now let's see if I can get this off. So, well, it's coming off, but it's not coming off as much as I want it to. So we'll see how it goes here. I'll try to get this one off and we can try it again. So the concept is that you dip it in your batter, you fry it, and then it comes right back off into the oil. It finishes frying in the oil and gets nice and dehydrated, and then you can pull it out in one piece. Now, did I try 3 of them yesterday and did all of them work? Yes. Are they not working today? Also, yes. So, stuff happens. We're live on air, and this is just how it works. But you can really see the beauty of the mold and how it can look. The nice thing that I really liked, and one of the other reasons that I chose this instead of a rolled out dough, is because I thought that it really would make my kids happy. So making this type of buñuelo is it was really attractive to me because it was more like, if you're familiar, I grew up eating pizzelles, which pizzelles are like a snowflake shaped, very thin cookie. And that was, I just really loved those growing up. You can find pizzelles in Aldi. They almost always have them. And they're really fun. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with them. They're really fun to eat. But we'll see how this goes here, if not, we'll just say no buñuelos today. But anyway, the beauty of a buñuelo, they're eating a lot around the holidays with people of Mexican heritage. And I ate 3 of them yesterday and can verify that they are very yummy. We put cinnamon and sugar on ours yesterday, and they're just like a crunchy, light. It's not too big of a treat, so doesn't feel like you're eating like this big, heavy dessert. And I feel like that might be part of, if I was eating a more doughy buñuelo, that it might feel that way. I'm burning all the fingertips off of my fingers right now. So anyway, we're going to leave the buñuelos behind, but you can kind of see as you hold it up that you get this nice flaky, bubbly batter. It's really beautiful. I flavored mine with orange zest yesterday. I zested almost an entire orange into there. And so they're really floral tasting, very orangey. Anise is another very popular flavor that goes into them. You could do nutmeg, you could do whatever your favorite holiday flavors are. And I'm sorry that they didn't work out, but that's just live cooking. You know what I mean? It's just that way. But the next thing that we're going to make, hopefully will work out because it's very easy. And I picked it because it will be easy for everyone to make at home. If you've ever heard, a lot of people will have heard of eggnog from a holiday perspective. It's a very commonplace holiday tradition. Lots of people drink eggnog. I would say there's like people that love eggnog and people that are like, no, I am not interested in that from a textural perspective. And quite honestly, I've never made eggnog from scratch. There's something really daunting about the fact of making something with raw eggs and then serving it to people and not making them sick. So I wanted to present an eggnog option that is a little more accessible, because you can take, eggnog is basically a custard drink, which is eggs and dairy and vanilla all mixed together, which is exactly the same ingredients of a high quality vanilla ice cream. So vanilla ice cream would be a custard made from eggs and dairy, sugar, and vanilla. And that's exactly what we need for this. It's already been pasteurized. It's already got the, all of the egg has, dangerous egg things have been cooked out of it. So you can really take that vanilla ice cream and make it into an eggnog for yourself without having to worry about the raw egg of it all. So other things to add into this. So this is just a vanilla ice cream that I bought at the grocery store. I let it sit onto the counter so that it is liquid. And I'm going to put it in my blender, maybe. I'm going to put it in my blender with half and half. I've already got some measured out. The recipe that I gave you guys is going to be for a big serving of it. It's going to be for a lot. You're going to eat that and use this like a whole quart of ice cream. I scaled it back. I think this ended up being like I divided the recipe by 3.4 so that I could use this type of this size of ice cream container, because I didn't need that much eggnog in my life, So this is half and half. Half and half is great to use for this recipe because especially if you're not a big dairy drinker at home or milk drinker, half and half is really shelf stable because it's ultra pasteurized. It stays in the fridge for a very long time. So it's great to use for something like this. And this is a great recipe to use up the rest of, a part of a carton of eggnog, half and half. And then I'm using a fancy ingredient. Now I am using a whole nutmeg. And this is what a whole nutmeg looks like. I don't know if you can see it. It just looks like a nut. And then I'm going to grind the husk off. So I'm taking my nutmeg and I'm taking this as a microplane and I'm going to just grate it. And like, as we always do with this, we're going to measure it with our heart. But one of the things I really love about nutmeg is when you grate it, you can see the inside and it's always a really cool pattern. It's like a really zigzag, cool, interesting pattern. So I like a lot of nutmeg, especially in holiday recipes. So I measured it pretty aggressively. And then we're also going to do the same thing with some fresh orange. This is a great holiday vibe. This is very fresh, lots of citrus around the holidays. And it can go really well with nutmeg and the vanilla and stuff like that. So I think the original recipe called for like, 2 teaspoons maybe of vanilla orange zest. But so I don't need quite as much for this. Let's see, I could probably actually read it off. Let's see what it is. It calls for the original recipe for the ton of it. It calls for 1 tablespoon. Oh, goodness sakes. So 1 tablespoon, which as we know, in case you did not, 1 tablespoon is 4 teaspoons. So we are going to put about 1 teaspoon in there. And we'll say that's good. Now, this is, again, very simple. I also like to think of this as like a fun, low impact, like you don't have to spend a lot of time making a holiday beverage. So if you like this, you can absolutely make this for a party or whatever and do a big bunch of it. Now, if you want to add booze, if that is what you are into, you can also add whiskey to this or bourbon. You can add Cointreau or your favorite orange liqueur. And that kind of bumps up that citrus and that festive vibe. This I'm making as a mocktail option right now, but you can always add booze later, or you can throw it back in the blender with booze if someone is not drinking at a party or something like that. So we are going to blend this. Just really, it's going to be really fast. We're just going to blend it up. We don't have to do a ton because we're not really, mixing anything. We just need to get all of the ingredients mixed together. Now it does look like my orange zest got stuck on the side, but that's okay. And then we want to serve this really cold. What you are in danger, not in danger, but like nobody wants to drink a lukewarm, thick dairy drink, right? That's not what we want. So we want to make sure that this is very cold. You can put it over ice if you want to. I am, just because that way it's nice and cold, cold, cold. But you can also make this ahead of time before a group get together and put it in your fridge so that it gets nice and cold. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with eggnog, but it's really frothy and beautiful at the top. If you do make it ahead of time, blending it right before you serve it will get that froth going. And stuff like that. And then the kind of the piece de resistance of doing this is you can take your fresh nutmeg or your shaker of nutmeg, and you can take it and put some fresh nutmeg right over the top. And it will help give that like really floral, beautiful note. I'll do a camera switch here so you can see what it looks like right from the top, because I think it's very pretty. Oh, it's too bright. Can't really see it, but yeah, you can kind of see the flecks of orange in there. You can see the flecks of orange. You can see the nutmeg sitting right on top of kind of the foam. And it's just really festive and fun and a really quick thing you can make at home. I got the ice cream from Target through the drive-up order and was able to make this with things I had in my house. Now, if you don't have orange zest, absolutely no big deal. You can just add a little dash of like, tiny little bit of orange juice if you want to, but if you do add that orange liqueur, it will give that orange flavor without needing the orange zest. The orange zest, because it has the oil from the orange in it, it just kind of bumps up the, orange essence that's involved in it. And did I see that there were questions? Oh my gosh, it's like the perfect balance of sweet. And it's not too thick, y'all. Oh, Diane might be right. She says it's 3 teaspoons, not 4. Every single time I do that, I have to Google it because it's like 4 tablespoons in a quarter cup and then 3 teaspoons in a tablespoon or something, or the vice versa. I have one of those. I have to ask Google on my phone every single time. I should ask Diane. That's what I should switch to. So Diane might be right. If I gave out fake news, I apologize. Let's check on our cookies. It looks like maybe I didn't hear my timer go off. Oh yeah, those are beautiful. So our cookies, and this is also a great question on how you know these are done. You can, let me show you on my camera here. You can look at them. Why are you trying to touch things? They're coming out of the oven, Natalie. You can look at them and they are starting to just brown around the edges. These are not something that is going to get perfectly brown in the oven. That's not what we are looking for. We are looking for just browning around the edges. I'm going to switch camera so that you can see what they look like a little bit. Our crescents are coming together, and then you can take these and dust them in powdered sugar if you want to. I actually love just the buttery kind of like not overly sweet aspect of them as they are. And right now out of the oven, they're kind of soft. They're going to fall apart if you handle them too much. So let them sit for a minute, but they have almost a cake-like texture right out of the oven. And then as you try to break one apart so you can see it, as they cool, you can see they're kind of crumbly. They're going to crumble apart and truly be like melt in your mouth good. If you had like a pecan sandy from the grocery store or whatever, they would be like a softer version of those. And they just are one of those really great festive things. You can smell them. You can smell the pecan in them coming out of the oven, and they are just really yummy. You can absolutely add different flavors if you want. If you want to add, something more like like a cinnamon or something to that, you can. This is a traditional recipe, except swapped out pecans. So, but feel free to kind of bump it up with your favorite flavor. Adding anise or something like that would be a great addition to this as well. And we did have somebody in the chat ask if the recipes will be posted, and Donna did answer it in the chat, but all of the recipes that we ever do for any cooking program are usually posted when they post the recording on the LaSalle Library website for you to check out. I would love to hear if in the chat, if anybody has their own holiday tradition that they do, or if anyone has made any of these recipes before. But I truly do, if you're going to take one thing away, you should take away this like ice cream eggnog situation, because it is so very tasty. And if you are not an eggnog person, like I don't identify as a person who drinks eggnog on a regular basis, this is so very good. So you should definitely try it. Are there any questions, or anyone wants to share their holiday traditions in the chat?
While people are thinking of their holiday traditions, I'll ask a practical question.
Yeah.
What's the best way to store, although I don't think there would be any left on the plate, the cookies, because they're quite fragile?
Yeah, so I think if you just put them in a single sheet, I mean, and they become less fragile as they cool down. It's just right out of the oven, they're going to fall apart if you handle them too much. But you can, after you coat them in powdered sugar or whatever your choice, I would just put them in a single layer in a container and put them, you can do them room temperature for, I think, probably up to a week, just because they have a high butter content, but they're never going to last that long. They just won't. Can I taste, someone in the chat did just ask, can I taste the orange zest in my eggnog? And yes, I can. And it is like super floral. It's not like a creamsicle, right? But it is super floral and beautiful, having the fresh orange zest. And I really do love that you can also see it in there. I wish that like the lighting would show it to you guys, and you might be able to see it. No. Okay. So you might be able to see it if I moved it up closer on the side, but you can't. So really little flecks of orange, and then the flecks from the nutmeg as well, which are just beautiful.
I've always heard that rum goes in eggnog. Is rum, or is it too sweet?
It might depend on the rum. I mean, if you use like a white rum, absolutely, that would be great. If you use more of like a blackstrap rum or something like that, that would bump up the sweetness also. The recipe that we included calls for a bourbon, which I think I would love, just because that sounds kind of fun to me, but you could use like a spiced rum or something like that. Brandy and eggnog, I think, is actually probably the traditional maybe. But really, I think as like these recipes, I think probably brandy would make sense coming from England. Bourbon is inherently like a Southern US kind of thing. But as like these recipes kind of spread around, right? You know, as like the islands were colonized, you know, you would get rum that may be added, or then once they came to America, then, you know, you would have maybe bourbon once it was developed in, you know, the southern states and things like that. So definitely, I think it's all regional, but I think brandy was probably the starting thing.
I see that Diane thinks that brandy is the traditional. Mm-hmm. She's the expert there tonight on the,
oh my gosh,
teaspoons and the brandy.
Don't ask Google, ask Diane. Sorry, I'm eating these live on air, but they're so yummy.
That's okay. That's okay. We understand completely. I wanted to actually ask you if I could lick the bowl of the eggnog.
As we scraped it, right?
Yeah.
And truly, these are like a shortbread cookie, right? So if you're familiar with that shortbread cookie profile, it's that buttery kind of almost fall apart, melt in your mouth feeling that you have from it. And if you, I don't know if you can see, I have a light color on the bottom of these, just like a light brown. So this is really, I think, a perfect way to do it. It's a good thing I forgot about my timer.
I think that your recipe and cooking this was important because you can buy crescent cookies in some format at the grocery store, but they're not like this. They are solid and shaped, and you could probably, you know.
And they came together very fast. And they, you know what I mean? I think that's one of those fun things that you see about that, is that I think a lot of times, especially if you had a grandmother who baked or whatever, it seemed like a lot of work a long time ago. But if you actually like sit down and do it, it's not too much. I think we did have another question in the chat.
I see
But if
it.
you coat the cookies while they are warm, and yes, I think so. Like I would not hot, not right out of the oven, right? You're gonna let them because that if you have them, if you coat them right out of the oven, that sugar will start to melt. So you're gonna want to wait until they cool down just a little bit. But if you wait until they're completely cool and dry, an hour from now, the sugar might not stick. So you want to, it's a happy medium. Oh, like it's very tricky, but so I would say maybe 10 minutes or so. And 10, 15 minutes maybe. And then like so that they're easy enough to handle, but they're still slightly warm that the sugar will stick to them, if that makes sense.
I was intrigued by you pouring, and I do like eggnog cold also.
Mhm.
I was intrigued by you pouring it over ice. That doesn't dilute it?
I mean, it will, but you should drink it fast,
Uh-huh.
unless it has a lot of booze, then don't drink it fast.
Okay.
But it will dilute it, it's going to as it cools down, but I just want things very cold all the time. You know what I mean? So I understand like you wouldn't necessarily like, but any sort of cocktail or anything like that, it might, and maybe that if you once it gets too far, it would be a little bit like watery milk. But I think if you are drinking it right now or having a small portion of it, I'd put it over ice so it's cold, 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 cold.
Okay. Well, we know what we need to do.
If you
I'm
are
looking-
wondering, Donna, about how to make any of these things vegan, it's hard to do, right? But
I know.
you could use your favorite vanilla vegan ice cream
Right.
for the eggnog, and then I bet you could use a coconut milk or like a thinned out coconut milk for the half and half, and
Right.
then that way you could have that kind of same vibe but with plant-based.
Yeah, that could be great. Cookies are always the downfall because of the butter. Because
Mhm.
there is vegan butter, but unfortunately it turns into oil as soon as it hits the
Yeah,
heat.
it's hard to hold together. Have you tried coconut butter?
No,
I
no, we
think
haven't.
like a food grade coconut butter might have a little bit better of I'm not positive, and I maybe will look that up and send it to you as an option, but that might be a good option.
Sounds good. We'd love to know for
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
I know you have to finish your cookies.
I'm gonna put this in the fridge. So I'm
That's
gonna
right.
finish the rest of the dough later, but I'm gonna take these 2 cookies with me when I go tonight.
So
Because
we are looking forward to putting your recipes up tomorrow, and we're
Mhm.
going to have the fruitcake, right? We're going to
Mhm.
have the cookies. We're going to have the
Mhm.
eggnog.
Yeah, we'll have eggnog. There's an easy eggnog recipe, a Buñuelo recipe. Now, again, the Buñuelo recipe that we are putting up, it should use the mold, and I'm really sorry that was not a success. I wish I could send you, I can send you a picture of the ones that turned out last night for proof. They also have my face in them. So I was so surprised that I made them on the first try. But of course, tonight they didn't work. And then you will also get the Buñuelo's almond crescents, eggnog, and then the fruitcake that we talked about. I think someone named maybe Kim in the chat asks if we can adapt it any for gluten-free. I have not personally, but I would think especially the almond crescents could adapt really well, especially to an almond flour, because you would have some almonds in full chunk form, but then sometimes almond flour doesn't taste natural in some recipes, but I think it would taste really good in these. So I think that would be great. Buñuelos, I know that some recipes out there exist for a gluten-free Buñuelo recipe. Also, feel free to check that one out, but I have not personally adapted them to gluten-free.
Okay, anybody else with questions for Natalie? If you don't have them tonight, you can always send them to us and we'll make sure she gets them and gets back to us with information.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well,
thank you so much, everybody, for spending your busy holiday week with me. I know it's not easy to make this happen, but I'm happy to be here with you. And I hope that whatever you make this holiday season, maybe it's a new tradition for your family. And I hope everyone has a good holiday season, no matter what you celebrate.
that's great. Absolutely. And, food is a celebration itself, and what better way to share it than with family and friends. So yeah, I think that's what makes cooking special at the holidays.
Absolutely.
everyone, if you could please fill in the pop-up survey at the end of the program when the Zoom closes. And if you need any more information about upcoming programs, please visit the LaSalle Public Library Program portal. And I think we're done. I'm looking forward to having cookies. Thank you again, Natalie.
Thank
If I
you.
don't talk to you before then, do have a wonderful holiday.
Back at you, Donna. Have a good rest of your night, everybody.
Bye-bye.